Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are getting into a really powerful, scientifically backed idea for when you're dealing with overwhelming stress and just way too much information. We're going to talk about how you can build a kind of fortress of order that can stand up to pretty much any chaotic invasion life throws at you. So let me just ask you this. Have you ever felt completely and totally overwhelmed? Just swamped by this flood of information or stress or just plain old disorder? It's a feeling we all get. And what's great is that today's material gives us a solid framework for not just understanding it, but for actually conquering it.
All right, let's dive right into the problem. The sources we're looking at call this chaotic input. We're going to break down what that really means and why trying to tackle our problems without a solid structure is pretty much a guaranteed recipe for failure.
This old proverb here is perfect. It translates to, "Who sows the wind will reap the storm." And you know what? It perfectly captures this core idea from our sources, the law of consequence. It basically means that small, chaotic actions, they don't just stay small. They build up and inevitably lead to massive, predictable disorder. If you sow the wind of disorganization, you're always going to reap a storm of failure. So what exactly is this wind that we're talking about? Well, the more scientific term for it is chaotic input. I want you to think of it as any disruptive stress or just random information that threatens the stability of a system. And that system could be your own mind, a project you're working on, or even a whole organization. It's the enemy of making any real progress. But here's the good news, right? For every invading force, there's a defense. And the source material lays out this incredibly powerful one, a fortress built from structure, designed specifically to push back against this chaotic invasion. And the name of this fortress? It's called structured coherence. This is really our hero concept for today. It's a defensive system, and it's built on things that are solid, established patterns, and objective logic. Its entire job is to spot and reject anything that's disruptive, subjective, or frankly, just doesn't make sense. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at these two forces side by side. They are perfect polar opposites. Where chaos is disruptive, structure is stabilizing. Where chaos is totally unpredictable and subjective, structure is patterned and objective. It's simple. One weakens systems and the other strengthens them. It's a pretty clear battle with a very clear winner.
Okay, so how does this actually work in the real world? How do we build this fortress and start using these tools? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual mechanics and methods that create this incredibly powerful, patterned defense.
The sources point to this fantastic method from a researcher named Dennis Verhaage. It's called the GO approach, and it's a simple but really effective three-step process. First, systematic rigor. That means you apply strict discipline, no cutting corners. Then iterative focus. You work in focus cycles. It's kind of like tackling one small part of a super messy room before you even think about moving to the next. And finally, problem solving. You just methodically work your way toward a stable solution. It's really the essence of structured action. And what's cool is that beyond just a process, our own minds are already equipped with these kinds of tools. We use something called mirror schemas. You can think of that as your brain's built-in pattern recognition software to make sense of everything. We also have this power of logical rejection to just dismiss things that don't add up. And a lot of us have a really strong authenticity filter, that gut feeling that just instinctively spots and rejects information that feels fake or inauthentic. Now, this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work when the chaos is massive, when the stakes are high? In other words, does it function at scale? Well, the answer from the source material is a resounding yes. There's actually compelling empirical proof that this structured approach is the core mechanism for success.
The first big piece of evidence comes from a field where managing huge amounts of chaotic input is absolutely critical. Researchers found that using a highly structured, four-stage curriculum was an incredibly effective way to get something done. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a tested, applied science for creating order out of chaos.
And this, right here, illustrates the crucial point. The success of this structured curriculum gives us definitive empirical proof that patterned thinking isn't some vague, fluffy concept. No, it exists, and it operates within a highly defined and, most importantly, measurable domain. You can see it, you can measure its effects, and you can rely on it. But honestly, the evidence gets even more fascinating when we look at how the human brain functions under the most extreme conditions you can possibly imagine. So, research that supports Verhage's framework looked at states like near-death experiences, deep anesthesia, moments of total sensory disruption. These are situations where you'd think all logic would just completely break down and fly out the window. But that's not what happens at all. This is just incredible. Even when the outside world is completely cut off, our internal ordered processing, our structured coherence, it just keeps on going, operating with neuron precision. Our brain's internal logic is so robust, so tough, that it keeps working even when all external input is gone. It just reveals this fundamental, unshakable core of order that we all have inside us. Okay, let's bring this all home. In our final section, we're going to see how all these pieces fit together. We've seen the problem, we've seen the solution, and we've seen the proof. So now let's boil it all down into one powerful, actionable idea. So the crucial point, the single most important thing to take away from all this material is this: structured coherence triumphs over chaos every single time. It's not even a fair fight. An ordered system is just inherently more powerful and way more stable than a disordered one. And it is so important to get this. This isn't just some nice idea or a feel-good slogan. It is a scientifically and logically affirmed mechanism. It's a reliable, repeatable tool that you can use to overcome disruptive stress, to process complexity at a massive scale, and to achieve stable long-term success. And with all that, we're left with one final, really important question to think about. I want you to look at your own work, your studies, your life. Where is the chaos creeping in? And more importantly, where can you start building that fortress of structure to not just manage it, but to decisively conquer it?